unless precautions are taken. The warnings focus on the 2012-2013 timeframe because that's when the 11-year solar activity cycle is expected to peak. You can also see cycles of wars linked in with solar maximum if you look at when the wars are taking place. World War I, Civil War, Vietnam War, when we went into Iraq, and where solar maximum is now. Look at where we're going, the projections for the next cycle. It's pretty easy to predict when the next war is going to take place on a larger scale, and it's in this next 3-year span of time. The warnings focus on the 2012-13 timeframe because that's when the 11-year solar activity cycle is expected to peak. Back in 2006, solar scientists said the coming peak, known as solar maximum or solar max, could be 30 to 50% stronger than the last one, based on a computer model that looked at how plasma circulates between the sun's equator and its poles. Since then, additional reports have added to the concern. In 2008, a National Academy of Sciences study said a severe geomagnetic storm could cause trillions in damage, $2 trillion in damage, and require as much as a decade of recovery time. In comparison, the damage estimate for Katrina is about $80 billion or so. Amid all the hype about a 2012 Mayan apocalypse that's been increasingly, on TV, the potential for in movies, in pop culture, about the potential for a solar superstorm on the scale of the 1980s event, which shortened out telegraph wires, sparked fires, and set off auroral displays as far as Cuba, Aurora Borealis. Fears that the damage would be more severe in this world of GPS navigation, satellite communications, and mobile devices. Oh, that would be a horrible thing if we had to go back to talking to one another, if we had to go back to bartering, if mating rituals were different. We actually had to look at each other and not have technology keep us together, like text messaging as the ultimate mating ritual, which it is today, and going back and forth, and the Facebook and all the technology that we're using to interface with each other. Oh God, the world would end if we didn't have technology to depend on so we stayed alive. So I see this as a positive, liberating thing that hopefully is going to happen to our planet. 2 quakes hit New Guinea with a magnitude of 6.9 and 7.3 southwest Pacific Ocean today. Authorities canceled a tsunami warning that has been issued immediately after the quakes. Now, solar maximum and events like the full solar eclipse, when you have solar flares, increased solar activity, and full solar eclipses, you have more earthquakes. And earthquakes, usually see more earthquakes in the 14 days before and prior a full solar eclipse. And so we're 7 days after the full solar eclipse, and we have several earthquakes to report. Not only that, but we have a whole lot of shaking going on in Washington, D.C. 3.6 magnitude earthquake jolted the region earlier Friday. How did this happen? It's actually not that often that they have an earthquake in Washington, D.C. Look back at the record of power switching from one party to another in either Congress or the White House, and something that could earn the earthquake label tends to happen on about the same schedule. Quakes that measure above 3 are extremely rare in this area. The number of people reporting the quakes to the USGS highlighted how unusual it seemed to residents of the mid-Atlantic states, according to a USGS representative. Here's another one. Strong earthquake strikes the Fox Islands in Alaska. That was a 6.7. Last year, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter dipped into a low orbit around the moon and almost immediately returned results confirming a theory that, well, I'm going back to the moon story because I actually had that in the wrong section. So, before we end the show tonight, I'm going to give you one of the most other interesting pieces of information. Talking about solar activity, we're talking about strange anomalies in the sky, and we're talking about strange changes on our planet and a lot of energy here. This is a new piece of information about changes going on our Earth's magnetic field. In fact, the upper atmosphere. A puzzling collapse of Earth's upper atmosphere reads the headline, record-breaking collapse. And this has just come out. And there are more reports coming out as I speak on the web, so I suggest you look further into this if you want more information. NASA-funded researchers are monitoring a big event in our planet's atmosphere. High above Earth's surface, where the atmosphere meets space, a rarefied layer of gas called the thermosphere recently collapsed and is now rebounding again. An upper layer of Earth's atmosphere recently collapsed in an unexpected large contraction, the sheer size of which has scientists scratching their heads. It's according to NASA's announcement Thursday. This is a record-breaking collapse, one that has scientists both puzzled and worried. Now, John Emmerich of the Naval Research Lab says this is one of the biggest contractions of the thermosphere in the last 43 years, and he is the lead author of a paper announcing the findings in the June 19th issue of the Geophysical Research Letters. It is a space-age record, end quote. The collapse happened during the deep solar minimum of 2008 to 2009, a fact which comes as little surprise to researchers. The thermosphere always cools and contracts when solar activity is low. In this case, however, the magnitude of the collapse was 2 to 3 times greater than low solar activity could explain. Emirates said something is going on here that we don't understand, that we can't predict. This is a picture of some recent solar activity that we saw around the time of the full solar eclipse last week, 7 days ago. The thermosphere interacts strongly with the sun, so is also very affected by periods of high or low solar activity. This layer intercepts extreme ultraviolet light, EUV, from the sun before it can reach the ground. So that's a report on solar flares, magnetic field fluctuations. We covered a lot of other things as well. And so I encourage you to take a look at this information and, of course, spread the word. If you'd like to help out with the show, we can use some help expanding what we do, getting the website back online, find a place to open up outside the box, the very first preparedness center for Portland. And, of course, I do need some help tonight getting my car back tomorrow in any way, shape, or form. So for more information on how to do that, please email me or call the studio, call those lines right after tonight's broadcast, so we can continue moving forward with the things that we have to move forward with. But as you also yourself face your own trials and tribulations, understand through my example that you can have nothing, can have very little, and also at the very same time, if you believe that you can, accomplish very much. And so this is something that I'm trying to do to impart this onto you, not to stand up on a podium or sit up on TV saying I have all the answers and I'm doing this because I have a big ego. I have a very different perspective than a lot of people as to what's going on this planet and who we really are. And I feel like I need to share this perspective. I need to share these opinions because if we do have free speech, if this is a conscious city and people that are all so about community, we ought to talk about the issues that matter. And we ought to take information and run with it when it hits us right here in our heart chakra. That lets us know this feels right. This feels right. This area that I'm investigating. And then when there's positive affirmation for the work that you do, you need to listen to those signs, whether you call it from God or from the universe, and give it all you got. Because the New World Order's goal is to continue to cause this self-destruction, the self-destructive pattern that many men and women are caught up in the city. I see so many beautiful men and women that are walking in the city and walking throughout this world that are physically beautiful on the outside, but inside you see the pain and you see the confusion. And I've always believed by understanding the change that we're in, by understanding the circumstances that we're in, and that we're not alone.